Now we have the AFC North, a very competitive division now all of a sudden. But we do have the rest of the draft here with Justin Blackmon being the first pick, the third overall selection. They do draft Brock Osweiler. We'll see if he gets a chance to start this year. Josh Laribus at offensive guard. Frank Alexander, the defensive end. Then Alameda Tiamu, DT. David Paulson, tight end. And they finish up their draft with Ryan Miller at offensive guard. As for their depth chart, we see Brody Croyle from the Detroit Lions, who is going to be the starter. Brock Osweiler might get a chance depending on how the season goes. Marvin Lewis was fired, and this is going to be John Harbaugh's first season as the Bengals head coach. That's right. John Harbaugh, the Bengals head coach, making all the AFC North teams and fans watching this video, all like two of you, making your heads roll. But John Skelton, who was the backup quarterback, he had like a pretty decent season 2-3 years ago, but just hasn't been able to do it since. They do have running back Noshawn Marino, Montario Hardesty, Lendell White. Marino's still pretty solid, but that's pretty much all they've got going for them there. We see wide receiver, they do sign a lot of players, and they pick up James Hardy from the Oakland Raiders. James Hardy really was Matt Ryan's favorite receiving target up until I drafted Julio Jones. So Oakland loses a solid star receiver, and they pick up James Hardy. Justin Blackmon, even though he's a 64 overall, he is going to be the second string. Anquan Bolden, the veteran, moves a little bit down to third. And so Bolden's 31 years old. If he was as good as he was in real life, he should be higher up, but he's only 73. Aurelius Ben and then Terrence Austin are filling in the rest of the receiver room. As for tight ends, we see Matt Spaeth, Kellen Davis, Anthony McCoy. They had Tony Gonzalez at tight end, and then he retired. So Matt Spaeth was starter last year. He's not the best starter, but he's been just the best that they can get. As for O-line, we see Anthony Costanzo, first-round pick last year. The rookie Laribus is going to be starting. They also have Corey Leicester, who was a center they signed this offseason, along with Isaiah Thomas at left guard, just the filler position. They do have Ben Grubb, someone they got a while ago, along with Ryan Miller, and then Kevin Booth finishing their offensive line. On the defense side of the ball, they have William Hayes at left end, who they did sign in free agency. They have Chris Baker, Alan Bailey. They also have Gerald McCoy as their defensive tackle, along with Kentwan Balmer, who comes over from the Super Bowl winning 49ers, and Terrence Knighton. And then their rookie is going to be the fourth place in the depth chart. They do sign Rob Ninkovich. They have Adam Howard. They signed Jameel McClain. They signed Rocky McIntosh, used to be a Browns player, then a Jets player. Also Victor Butler. They do have star cornerback Eric Wright, who's an 81 overall cornerback. So Eric Wright is their man. They also have Dominic Franks, Aaron Williams, Trevard Lindley, and Jalil Brown. As for safeties, Tanar Jackson and Kenny Phillips are star safeties. Really good for them. And then for their special teams, we have Lendell White, Justin Blackmon, really just anybody who can just fill that role. They don't really have a solid return specialist. Kicker Graham Gano and Matt McBriar filling out their kicker and punter. Again, with the Bengals, I think it's going to be if Brody Croyle can spark back to his Detroit Lions days, they could be a playoff team. If he's just mediocre, they're not going to go anywhere. But there's still a lot of holes to fix in this team. But here we go. The worst team in the AFC North. My team, the Cleveland Browns, take Dwayne Allen in the first round as tight end. Not the best choice because I think he was a third-round pick in real life, but he's like the second best tight end. And he was a good player. He actually was around the league for a while. They do get Nick Perry, who's a pretty solid linebacker, Travis Benjamin, who's a real-life pick, speedster, and then even Chase Minnifield. Minnifield's dad actually played for the Cleveland Browns in real life, so I drafted him to the Browns, even though Minnifield in real life did not go he went undrafted. Also brought in Lucas Nix and Fozzie Whitaker in the 7th round. So the Browns had a very surprising 9-8 season where they did miss the playoffs. Had they won that last game, they would have been the 7th seed over the Dolphins, and who knows, maybe they would have made the Super Bowl. They are under coach Jim Tressel, so you'll see a lot of Ohio State players, but Terrell Pryor was Rookie of the Year because he rushed for over 1,000 yards in his rookie campaign. They do sign Josh Johnson, who was the Ravens quarterback until he was replaced by Colin Kaepernick last year. And they do have Troy Smith, the other Ohio State quarterback. They lost Steve Slayton in free agency, but they pick up Felix Jones, who I quite believe is a better improvement. They have Joy Cabell, Chris Ogbonnaya, and Fozzie Whitaker, and they did trade for Peyton Hillis last year, the powerful fullback, Madden cover in 2012. Peyton Hillis takes on some shotgun or single back roles as running back, more as the bruising back for the Cleveland Browns. Receivers could use some work, even though they did work. Anthony Gonzalez was a top receiver in the league last year, even though his overall doesn't show that. Brian Robisky, the other Ohio State wide receiver, so Gonzalez, Robisky, and Sansenbacher, all from Ohio State. Benjamin, the rookie, is going to be third string. And then Jordan Norwood at 65 overall, just kind of being their fourth man. They could use an upgrade there. Dwayne Allen will start at tight end. And Ben Watson and Billy Bajima are going to fill in as backups. We see Joe Thomas, the Hall of Fame left tackle, Chris Snee, Marquise Pouncey. They do sign Darren College at right guard to replace either Pat or Paul McQuistion, and then Shane Olivia. So they have probably one of the best O-lines in the league. They signed Dan Connolly from, I think it was the Chargers. He's going to be their backup O-lineman. As you can see, he's backing up the left guard, center, and right guard spots. As for defense, we see Ohio State, Vernon Golston at left. They still have Cameron Wimbley from when they got him in the 2006 draft. B.J. Raji, Phil Taylor, Sean Rogers, all nose tackles, all really big guys up front, and all doing a solid job, actually. I mean, I have Sean Rogers in rotation, and then Doug Worthington also there. We have left outside linebacker Nick Perry getting the start, even over Kaluka Maava. That's because they have Bruce Carter, who was a first-round pick last year, E.J. Henderson from the Patriots backing him up, and then John Beeson, who is their star linebacker at 82. Now, the one I'm very impressed with is Stanford Rout, who's 87 overall, became their all-star cornerback. I did not expect that to happen for Cleveland, but it did. Kind of their Joe Hayden. We see Ousa Ansah as the second, even Drew Coleman, Buster Screen, Kevin Barnes. And then we see Abram Elam as their free safety. They could use an upgrade there, along with T.J. Ward, young guy, hard-hitting safety, and they do bring in Mike Adams. As for special teams, they are rocking with Josh Cribbs, even though Travis Benjamin could potentially replace him as a return man. They did get Alex Henry, and they have John Ryan at punter. Browns, I mean, you never know with this team. They could find a way to screw it up. They could find a way to be super victorious. But, I mean, with Terrell Pryor, they could be on the move. But if Terrell Pryor slumps, they could be back in the top 10, top 5. The Baltimore Ravens, who were the number 1 team last year under head coach Al Saunders, takes Cordy Glenn, an offensive tackle, with their first pick. And he's actually likely not going to start because they already have a really solid O-line, and they just went with best player available, and Cordy Glenn slipped farther than maybe he should have. They then get Jack Bickett in the second round at defensive end, Asa Jackson at corner, and then Vic Ballard at running back. In the later rounds, they have Danny Cole at wide receiver, Christo Bulukidi, and then Rodney McLeod Jr. at free safety. Looking at their roster, we see Colin Kaepernick, of course, starting. They do sign David Garrard, who's bounced around the league as a successful starter, but he's now kind of doing the bounce around the league as a backup. Was with the Green Bay Packers last year. Was with Seattle a little bit before then. And then he was with Houston. He was with the Jaguars, of course. Mike Kafka is definitely not the backup or anyone nobody wants to see him play. So David Garrard is backing up Kaepernick. Ray Rice, who was in the MVP race up until Pryor just smashed it. Justin Forsett, Rashad Jennings, also there. Jason Snelling, kind of the power back, fullback option. Their receivers are pretty solid. They got Dwayne Bowe and Demaryius Thomas, who they both drafted. Donnie Avery comes over from, I believe, Detroit in free agency. And they also have Cecil Shorts and then their rookie Cole. Tight end Jared Cook, Kevin Boss, and then Combs, all there for their tight ends. I mean, Jared Cook is a pretty solid tight end for them, and he has been for a while. Then when we look at offensive line, we see Zach Strife, Roberto Garza, John Sullivan, Sean Andrews, Tony Pashos, and that's why the rookie doesn't get a chance to start, Cordy Glenn, even though I possibly could consider putting him in over Roberto Garza at left guard. Not sure yet what I want to do with that, but on the defensive side of the ball, we see Lamar Houston, Marcus Spears, Jarrell Casey, Brandon Mebane, all big guys up front. Jack Paquette, maybe more of the typical pass rusher. I mean, Lamar Houston is, but Spears is more of the run stopper. They do sign Manny Lawson, and Lawson comes from the Cincinnati Bengals. So they're able to take a rival's talented linebacker and bring him to their own. We see Lance Briggs getting older. He's been there since 2003. Gerard Mayo, who's been an anchor middle linebacker for them, originally with the Patriots in real life, but he's in mine in this reality. Alden Smith at the right side. And so basically Lance Briggs is going to be the backup on either side if either of them get hurt. But there's Kelvin Shepard behind Mayo. As for corner, we see Vontae Davis. And then we have Kelvin Hayden, Kyle Arrington, Asa Jackson, the rookie. Safeties are solid. Ed Reed, who is getting older, and then Bernard Pollard, who is an anchor free safety and just going to be a solid contributor for many years. As for special teams, we see Danny Cole and Cecil Shorts as options. Solid kicker and Robbie Gould. And then Kevin Huber. So we'll see if the Ravens are able to have the magic they did last year. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll see. But it's all going to depend on Kaepernick. It's going to depend on Ray Rice, and to see if this defense can hold up in the AFC North with some solid competition. The Pittsburgh Steelers get Michael Floyd in the first round. Then they go for Jeff Allen, who, well, he's not going to probably make much of a splash in this league. They get Lamar Miller at running back, Josh Norman at corner in the fourth round. Tank Carter, middle linebacker, Justin Tucker, the sixth round pick, and then Ryan Broyles at wide receiver. As for their roster, we see Ben Roethlisberger, of course, at quarterback. Derek Anderson, he made the Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos but lost and was starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks the last two seasons. He now goes to Pittsburgh, so that's a 6'5" Ben Roethlisberger and a 6'6" Derek Anderson on the same team. Running back, we have Maurice Jones-Drew, who's been there since 2006. Lamar Miller, the new addition. Jordan Todman. Quinn Johnson at fullback. Wide receivers, they've been needing to have some talented receivers, and they just really haven't. Malcolm Kelly was kind of a talent, but he was low overall, and I made him better. I played with him better than he was. But Emmanuel Sanders is there. That's why they drafted Michael Floyd. But Vincent Brown was like a second or third round pick last year. Brandon Gibson, Devery Henderson. They have a lot of people who should be good but aren't. Now, tight end Delaney Walker is very good. Kellen Winslow is the best. Veteran backup. Adrian Robinson, filler. They lost one of their solid left tackles. Joe Staley. But in doing so, they pick up Ryan Clady, who possibly could be better for them in the long haul, because I think Clady is younger than him. They do have Luis Vasquez. They have Richie Incognito, and I think Incognito, such a terrible player in real life, and like how he plays, that nastiness, and I thought, Pittsburgh's the place for him. Chilo Rachal is starting over the second-round pick, Jeff Allen. And then you see on the right tackle, they have Eric Winston, solid right tackle, along with Jamarcus Webb, who can sort of come in anywhere on the offensive line there. Now, their defense is also nothing to shy away from. We see Tamba Hali, J.J. Watt, as left and right end. They used to have another. They had another solid defensive end, and we had to make some changes because they were just too star-studded. Dan Williams is their DT, and they probably could do a little better there. They do have Pariah Jerry, who was a high pick before. But as for linebacker, we see DJ Williams, who's an anchor for them. Brandon Spikes, who is young. He's trying to become more of a impactful force, but I mean, he's played well. And then Elvis Dumerville is their star pass rusher. Definitely a solid contributor. So you have Dumerville, Watt, Hawley. As for corner, they don't have a star corner, but they're pretty solid with like David Jones, Orlando Scandrick, who's a late round pick, Jason McCourty, I don't see him actually there, but Josh Norman, I think maybe I have him as a sixth string, but Josh Norman should progress a bit better. As for safeties, we have Deshaun Goldson, who was a Super Bowl MVP because he intercepted Drew Brees on their attempt to win the game against Pittsburgh, but because Goldson intercepted the ball, that ended it. And then we have the best safety in the league, Dante Whitner, and where Polamalu went to the Seahawks, and he's still there now. I wanted Pittsburgh to have that hard-hitting safety, and when 2006 came about, I just could not pass on Dante Whitner. Too good of a pick for Pittsburgh to pass up. And as you can see, he has been nothing but fantastic for them. As for special teams, we see Brandon Gibson, Floyd, Brown as kind of the options for return. Justin Tucker is going to be their kicker for a long time. And then Thomas Morstead at punter. Pittsburgh, any year could be their year. You never know. So you could likely see them winning the division again soon.